Hey everyone, and thank you all for joining today's very special AMA right here on the Kontos X channel. And we're going to be talking all about chain abstraction, cross chain solutions, and beyond. And honestly, I can't think of any better partners to do this than Everclear and Transak as well. So today, we're very excited to be joined by Max, who is the ecosystem lead at Everclear, and Alessandro, who is the head of growth at Transact. I think for all three of us projects, we're working on creating solutions within the cross chain space, and I think we share a lot of similarities. And at the same time, I think all of us are very unique because we share a lot of unique features, and the problems that we are trying to solve are pretty niche as well. So hopefully with this AMA, um ourselves as well as everybody listening, we'll be able to get to know a little bit more about what you do, what your project does, and dive a little deeper into everything to do with cross-chain solutions and beyond. So yeah, so before we get started, let me just give a quick introduction as to Kontos because I see a lot of new faces joining as well. So for those of you who are hearing Kontos for the first time or joining in to our X Spaces for the first time, we are a ZK powered omni-chain infrastructure that's built by Zekri Labs, and it's setting the new standards in digital asset management and omni-chain trading. Backed by Binance Labs, we pioneer as the first mainnet operating ZK-based chain abstraction infrastructure, and we are, designed to address critical issues within the blockchain ecosystem whilst maintaining the highest form of asset security, and at the same time, providing a seamless user experience. So a couple of things that we focus on are four types of abstraction, right? So chain abstraction, account abstraction, asset abstraction, and action abstraction. And all of these together collectively enhance usability, security, efficiency, and flexibility. And adding all of these together, it makes Contos a powerful tool for managing digital assets and executing trades, in this complex world of blockchain technology. So one of the abstraction methods that I mentioned, chain abstraction, is something that all of us share, and it's going to be the core kind of topic of this AMA. So before further ado, let's get into this, and firstly, a very warm welcome to both Transac and Everclear who have joined us today. So why don't we start off with a introduction, a little introduction about yourself, your background, and tell us a little bit about, what your project is all about. So let's go with Alessandro. Do you want to start first?
Sure, I can start. Yeah, thanks for having me on this panel. I'm Alessandro, leading growth at Transac. I've been there almost for 4 years now. When we were like this small on and off ramp, and now like 4 years later, I've changed many different roles. So today, in I mean, I've always been head of growth, but the role has evolved as the company has grown. um, so yeah, about my background, I studied economics and started working in TradFi. So I was working for Bloomberg, and then moved over into Web3 with this job. And yeah, I'm excited to dive into this topic. And yeah, over to Max.
GM everyone, how's it going? This is Max. I'm I'm the ecosystem lead at Everclear. We were previously known as Connext. I've been in crypto since 2017. Been floating around different projects and been with Everclear for the past three. I'm also a delegate at the Arbitrum DAO, which is one of the ecosystems that we support as Everclear. So trying to get involved with everything from governance to everything related to the ecosystem, new apps, new chains in this very exciting space. Two lines about Everclear. Everclear is we define it as the first clearing layer. We'll deep dive into what it means later, hopefully. But in a nutshell, we help to coordinate the settlement of liquidity across the different chains in order to boost what a chain abstracted experience looks like. Last fun fact: Alessandro and I are from the same city, so we're almost neighbors. So maybe next time we'll plan it better and do a one joint session, Ale.
Really cool that you guys are from the same area, and I think that's how Web3 kind of connects us. And I really like that both of you have a very diverse background in Web3 as well. And I like what you said, Alessandro, how you've been working like the same role at Transact, but it's just evolved, right? As a product. And I think that's what's really cool about Web3 as well, how fast products evolve. And yeah, that's a fun thing about us being in the space, right? So yeah, so let's dive in a little deeper, and let's go with Max first, right? With Everclear. So um Everclear, I would say, online, I've noticed that you guys also advertise yourself as the first clearing layer, right? And I know that this also, like the core is to, coordinate the settlement of liquidity between chains and so on. So, for a lot of our users who might be, hearing about, liquidity and just cross-chain solutions for the first time, can you just tell us a little bit more about what exactly this means and how Everclear kind of goes about it?
Yes, with pleasure. I need to do a little bit of premise because Everclear is really a B2B solution. So what we do, we serve other liquidity bridges so that their liquidity becomes really cheap. Uh, and so in order to understand why this is needed, I need to do a little bit of premise on how the current mechanism works in the space. Um, but the of Everclear is really to create a fully chain abstracted experience, right? An experience where the user doesn't need to know if he doesn't want to, where an app is deployed, where they hold funds on which chains, but they can interact with any applications on chain, similar to how they do on Web2 and then normal internet. They don't need to. It's a vision where a user doesn't need to specifically explicitly bridge to a chain, doesn't need to explicitly buy gas on a specific chain, but instead it operates all seamlessly across Web3. And so, in order to do that, we envision an on-chain, cross-chain economy that is enabled by intents and intent-based protocols. These intents are basically instructions that are sent by users by their wallets and are then executed by these cross-chain protocols, cross-chain bridges, uh, that by solvers, so entities that can execute the instructions that users have sent them, abstracting all the complexities that they have to do. So for example, if a user says, hey, my funds are on Base, I want to deposit into a vault on Aave, which is on Optimism. What they would have to do, they would have to bridge from Braze to Optimism, buy some gas on Optimism, change their RPC in their wallet, and do all these kind of steps. And instead, what intent-based bridges do, they said, okay, I will do all this complex stuff for you in exchange for a very small fee. And my solvers will do it on your behalf, basically. So the solvers basically take their own funds, deposit them into a vault, and then basically give that receipts to the user, so the user has accomplished their action, and after that, all these intent-based protocols basically refund the solvers with the funds that the user has initially sent. Now, the issue is that how do the solvers get refunded so that they can repeat the cycle again in the cheapest possible way? this is what Everclear focuses on, providing the cheapest liquidity uh, to the different bridges and intent-based bridges, or any, let's say, big player that needs to move a lot of liquidity across the different chains in the cheapest way. How do we do that? We created a sort of a clearinghouse, a clearing system where we identify the different coincidence of wants, or coincidence of intentions that exist across the different chains. Um, so, for example, if a solver needs to be rebalanced on optimism and has their funds on base, so they need to move their funds from one chain to another one, and other solvers instead have the funds on optimism and needs to be refunded on base, or vice versa. We basically identify these opposite needs and we can net them out. And in this way, the amount of um, flows that actually need to happen is reduced drastically. And so we can drastically cut the cost by 9 or 10x compared to what current liquidity bridges do. So this is why we call ourselves the clearing layer. This is what Everclear specializes on. And this is what the global settlement or liquidity, coordinating the global settlement or liquidity across chains means. I hope it makes sense.
Yeah, thank you, Max. That's a really, really clear explanation on what you guys do, and I think it's really cool that providing liquidity, to intent-based bridges and other areas in the cheapest way, especially 10x is a, pretty big amount. So hopefully, it's gonna help more businesses kind of get their stuff done in a lot cheaper way, and you mentioned about, I think, liquidity as well. I think when it comes to Contos, I think our goals are pretty much the same, especially when it comes to, seamless interaction and just reducing the friction and increasing that accessibility of liquidity, right? So that's really cool, and hopefully we'll be able to kind of dive deeper into this and allow users to kind of learn a little bit more. So now let's move on to Alessandro, and I have a question about Transact. So obviously you guys have been, building a strong suite of services. You mentioned in your introduction as well. You guys started from, a ramp to developing from that, and I think one of the main things is allowing users moving funds from fiat into crypto. Besides this, I think, could you discuss a little bit more about, maybe the key features that Transact offers to users, and what makes you guys unique compared to other projects in your category?
Yeah, for sure. So I think since the start, we have been focusing in solving mainly one problem, which is to make it easier for people to access Web3. So starting from this goal, we obviously, as our expertise was there, we decided to basically solve this mission starting from payments. And so this started with integrating as many payment methods as possible, from cards to Apple Pay, Google Pay, on the one end. So like executing really on the fiat side to offer as many payment methods as possible to the widest audience in a regulated way. So our play is, compared to maybe a more like crypto native project, really has to be focused on compliance, regulation, and all of that. So on the one side, there's been execution on this side, so offering and being compliant in the most amount of countries possible. On the other hand, obviously we also have to offer what the you know diverse audience in crypto wants, and from different blockchains to different tokens to partnering with the right projects. So at the same time, we have been constantly expanding our reach and by definition, we have always been obviously multi-chain, even if we started with Ethereum, also because we were incubated by Tachyon, which is part of Consensus. So naturally, we had a heavy focus on Ethereum at first, but then we started going, on different layer ones, layer twos. We even support layer threes today. Um, so I think our strategy has always been to try to serve the most amount of consumers, and starting from that assumption to solve the problem of onboarding. Payment is just one side of the problem. Obviously, the other one is make it easier for someone, for example, to spin a wallet, and we're seeing a lot of work being done with account abstraction on this side. But also, something that is really interesting from my perspective is um, like clearing solutions, like Max said. Like, in my opinion, we are not there yet, but we are starting to enter a phase of this technology where the users will be completely, I mean, they will not be completely unaware if they don't want to, but most of this, these different layers of, like, blockchain layers, but they eventually complexity layers, they will probably be hidden somewhere. And I think a great example of that might be, some DeFi apps that let you, I don't want to say any names, but they will let you, for example, go from one chain to another with a seamless experience. So I think it is really important for the user to have a very straightforward experience. So, for example, what Circle did with their cross transfer protocol is, it's interesting because it allows you to potentially avoid one layer of complexity for your user. So we are constantly researching and looking for solutions on this side. But yeah, in terms of new product that you mentioned, lately we have been focusing on identity, as we are onboarding more and more users, and we believe in zero knowledge technology. So we recently partnered with Privado ID, which is former Polygon ID, to basically build a reusable KYC. And this is something, for example, that none of the providers and our competitors have today. So I would say, like, this is really a distribution play. So in on and off ramps, there is a lot of, who is distributed the most. The more users you have, the more traction you get. So, like, users will typically reuse your service because they associate, with a strong brand, and you have a better reputation. And we are trying, to be one of the most innovative providers. But of course, you will find, similar features in many other projects. I would say, though, like in any other competitive business where you can gain, you where you don't necessarily have a very strong IP, but the technology is replicable. In this type of businesses, the distribution really has an impact, and it becomes more and more expensive for competitors to get into the game. So naturally, only a few players remain after a few years, because it doesn't make economic sense to start that sort of business. So I would say we are entering some sort of consolidation phase, also in on off ramp, like we saw in, for example, in the exchanges space. Like you had like 100 names, and now maybe you have 5 or 10 left that are relevant. So the same is happening in, not just in on and off ramp space, but in crypto in general, I would say. And we'll see a lot of M&A to that I think will convalidate this theory. Um, so yeah, like I that's my view in general on the space.
Cool. Thank you for that, Alessandro. It's cool that, with Transact, have you been focused on, just not just the wrap feature, but also, payments and account abstraction, as you mentioned, and now moving into digital identity, which is a really big part of Web3 as well. And you mentioned about the Transact KYC earlier as well, which we'll get into a little bit later. But yeah, all of these features coming together to create a seamless experience. And I think that's one thing that's really cool when it comes to building a product that makes crypto more accessible, right? So on the one hand, you're building to make it more accessible for Web 2 users to use Web 3, and on the other hand, you're continuing to improve your product to make it an even more seamless experience, and just to elevate the experience for everybody. And that's really cool. And I think at Contos, this is something that is a core belief as well, just to make crypto more accessible for the users. And over the past few months, we've been constantly kind of uh, building and extending our features that allow users to, manage their asset portfolio, whether it's discovering new tokens or the hottest tokens in the market, understanding the price markets, and just trade very easily, with the opportunity to, let's say, merging multiple tokens for transactions or using bots and so on. So yeah, I think in another way, we're also constantly figuring out new ways and improving our products to build on our core, which is making crypto more accessible. And hopefully all of us are able to kind of build on that and really make or set trends within the Web3 space. So now I have a question for Max. Um, I've noticed that chain abstraction is a core component of Everclear, right? So um, if if you could maybe give a little insight into how important is this form of abstraction to Everclear, and maybe in your opinion a little bit about how important it is in general within the crypto industry.
Yeah, as I was mentioning, this is pretty core to our thesis, and it's nice to see that it's being more and more recognized in the space, and people are starting to understand what it means. And in our view, uh, the chain abstraction is really composed of a very complex stack where different layers play different roles and try to get specialized into something different. So of course, like Contos is working also towards in the same direction, but it has a different role to what Everclear or what other type of entities do. And so we're starting to see some framework around the clearing, sorry, the chain abstraction stack and where it plays. The way we see it is that it's really a, a multiple layers that have the ultimate objective of solving the problems that modular blockchains have created, right? This idea that all these new blockchains and all these new layer twos have created fragmentation from the space can only be solved by this chain abstraction stack. And so this stack is composed by um, multiple entities, as we're saying. At the very top, we can imagine the entities that uh, are in charge of interacting with the user. So these are the smart wallets. These are the all the protocols that are in charge of requesting signatures from or requesting transactions from users. So these guys are enable users to express intents and give permissions to execute these intents, basically. Below that, there are the actual auction systems. This is the case of the various bridging protocols like Across, Uniswap X, Socket, for example, all the bridge aggregators that you guys know, networks like Haori that are network of solvers. So these guys are basically in charge of receiving the different intents that we were saying are powering these chain abstraction use cases, and then selecting which solver, which professional entity is in charge of executing them. So the third level that we then see is actually the solvers. So these are, as we were saying, like professional entities. It's the like of Wintermute, it's the like of Amber, it's the like of the different network that are being created from projects like Enso, Kalani. So these are very specialized entities that execute intents on behalf of the users, as we said. And they are ultimately the ones that make your cross-chain transactions possible. And then below that, we see the clearing layer as a new layer for um, enabling the liquidity to these solvers and to these into this network of solvers and to these cross-chain intent-based bridges and ultimately to users. And then under those, there are all those modular blockchain transport protocols, centralized exchanges that on ramp and on ramp that enable um, the inflows and outflows of data, let's say between the different transactions. And so all of these constitute what we call the chain abstracted stack, which is what really excites us about the space. Because once we unlock that, then that's the moment where really we have the scalability sorted from a blockchain perspective, where we with layer twos and layer threes and all these pieces of infrastructure that are now ready to support hundreds of millions and then billions of transactions. And then we have a way to unify them so that the user perspective is really seamless and finally in a smooth to onboard the famous next billion people, which would be the final users of everything that we're building on.
Cool. Thank you for that, Max. Yeah, I mean, one of the things that you mentioned over the past few years, we've been seeing so many L2s, pop up, all in the name of onboarding the next billion users into crypto, right? And as you said, like, it might be good for users, but behind the technology, it can be, very complicated, especially the infrastructure and communication between. So I think focusing on chain abstraction and this sort of communication between chains is so important right now. And I think it's great that Everclear is focusing on this. I think the main goal here is to be able to allow users to kind of have that seamless experience, interacting with different chains, and whilst not being how to say it, like not being too fussed about the intricacies and like the interoperability issues that go on behind the scenes. It's something that Contos is kind of working on as well, and it's something that we also focus on very intensely, I would say. And yeah, hopefully, as you mentioned, as our products grow more more mature, that user experience also becomes a lot more smoother, and ultimately we will be a important part in onboarding the next billion. Fingers crossed. So yeah, so moving on, right? We have a question for Transak. um since you guys have been offering a service that caters across a lot of different projects, right, across wallets, DeFi, GameFi, and beyond, you guys have also worked with some incredible projects and partners as well, helping them to improve liquidity, security, as you mentioned, the Transact KYC as well, and so on. So having worked with such a diverse group of projects, what do you think has been, what do you think Transact has been doing that supported their growth? And are there any, particular insights that you can share having worked with many of these projects?
Yeah, I think what made us successful was really sticking to a core product. So, um, like if I look at when I started, and I was loading our widget, which might be like if you just look at it, it looks like a PayPal widget, and people will think, okay, maybe superficially, if I look at it, it's very simple, right? It's just like a few things together, like maybe you'll think in a naive fashion, like what's difficult about it. But in the back end, there is a lot of complication that the users doesn't see. So I think what made us successful so far has been really listening to our partners. So for example, I want to do something and you don't support my blockchain, building a dedicated skill team that could understand EVM code, or could understand um, for example, even Rust for another blockchain. So like really getting skilled teams regarding that, and also constantly improving a core product for performance. I'm still impressed, about how much we have been improving the core performance of the product, which is key, because when someone is trying to make a payment, so like they get their credit card, they do Apple Pay, whatever they use, they do a bank transfer. I think being fast is super important. Even the loading time makes you lose a lot of users. So in a way, on this side, we have been really acting like a traditional fintech company, and trying to really improve and understand our users and our partners, and constantly improve that. Um, I would say on more on the what I think is interesting in the ecosystem. I believe we were successful to partner with a lot of these projects because of what I said. Basically, we really adapted to their demand, and we took every opportunity we had, of course, making judgment calls, because we, as any other company, have limited amount of resources, right? So if we have 20, 30, 50 chains today, there is this joke, there are more chains than users. So we really have to be sure of what we are doing. So we constantly do assessments, and try to gauge and make a judgment call on where we should put our engineering team. And we take bets. Basically, we are still a startup, right? So we need to make bets, and have conviction play, like anyone that is investing. We are doing the same thing. We are a horizontal bet on Web3. If this ecosystem grows, then we'll also grow with it. So that's what we do. In terms of what I'm excited about, I think in particularly in Europe, and I guess this has also obviously drawbacks. I think with Mika, which is the regulatory framework that they are implementing here, um, the lines between crypto and fiat are really blurring, like basically also almost disappearing, as Circle and even Societe Generale, which is a bank, they got basically e-money license for their stable coins. So what does it mean is we are entering now a phase where we have been trying to disintermediate this industry. In a way, maybe will be successful, but also traditional actors jumping into the space to grasp the opportunity. And I think the infra becomes more and more relevant. uh, Crypto in a way could become less relevant, in the sense like I have my token, all of these forms of um even like growth tactics like airdrops, they're like, I think, fading, they're becoming less and less important. So I think we will enter a phase where like we'll have a lot of stablecoin driven apps, and the crypto side might still be relevant, and it will still be the most important use case, which is speculation to this day. But I hope we'll enter a phase of utility dApps, being even like I'm including in the utility anything that is not basically just speculation. So from gaming to maybe remittances, I think this is the moment for these things because of the favorite or unfavorite regulation, depending on your standpoint. And so I think this is the new era we are entering in Web3.
Awesome. Thank you, Alessandro. And I like that how you mentioned that Transact is, altering a lot of your services to kind of, meet client needs and at the same time keeping the product simple to use. And I hope everybody listening, you can give, Transact a try and just see how simple it is to use. I also really like how you mentioned that, I think we're seeing this maturing phase when it comes to Web3, more, stable coin based activities and less, airdrops and stuff like that. So, and regulatory changes as well. So, I mean, it's good to see that in Europe and in a lot of other places, especially with legislation. It's good to see that the lines between, fiat and crypto are getting blurrier by the day, and hopefully it's going to kind of, evolve for the better. So yeah, fingers crossed on that. And for the next question, I have for both of you actually, and this is a little bit more general, I would say. And it's actually we can start with Transact first, or with Max. So I think you know, one of the main things that we've all been working on. I think if you're looking at some of the points that are pretty similar for all of our products, right? So it's cross-chain solutions, user onboarding and just making a very seamless experience, right? So if you're looking at it in general, what are some of like the main pain points? It can be for your project or some pain points that you've noticed within the crypto industry, that you're facing in general, and what do you think are kind of like the solutions to these problems, and how can these experiences be improved? Max, do you want to go ahead with this?
Yeah, with pleasure. So I think we are almost there. To be honest, I think all the different pieces of the puzzle are finally coming into place. As Alessandro was mentioning before, the onboarding is definitely one of the uh, most difficult parts for a new users that is joining a new app. So there is all the steps of doing your KYC, doing converting your fiat into crypto, and then learning how to, and so this is the onboarding onto cryptosphere. And after that, there is all the on-chain part, which is also complex. So how do I make sure that I'm on the right chain? How do I move my funds? How do I understand gas? But all of this is really can really be abstracted by these new experiences that were created. So the famous account abstracted experiences, chain abstracted experiences. It's all converging into this smooth uh, flow for the user, where we can really reduce uh, the time from where it is from when it starts getting value, right? And for me, the moment when it starts getting value is when somebody deposits some funds into Aave or Fluid or another lending protocol, and starts seeing that he starts accumulating interest out of it. For me, that's one of the wow moments that you can get in crypto. And so if we get to the state where a user can be onboarded with 3 clicks and 30 seconds, uh, that's where we can really succeed at this game and into having making the products accessible to everyone. So I think both Transact and Everclear and Kontos, we're all working in the direction to really simplify, shorten the time, and getting the user as soon as possible to the wow moment. It can be a game, it can be a DeFi, it can be anything that you can think of. Uh, and we're almost there. I think there is some incremental improvements that we can bring, but if we were now all the different pieces that were required for this experience to go live.
Awesome. Thank you, Max, for your insights. Alessandro, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I think actually the biggest challenge we're facing today, and this is true especially for builders, but also for early crypto users, is that I see a lot of meta talk. Like I see a lot of people building stuff that are more and more like there is basically some sort of tunnel vision that a lot of builders have today, and they're trying to make incrementally better something that is only catered to crypto users. So sometimes I feel like in this industry we are forgetting that this whole industry was born for payments, and to this day there is not even a single blockchain except maybe for Binance and OPBNB and all of this and Base, which let's not forget are all tied to traditional fintech companies because that's what centralized exchanges are. There is not a single chain that has solved payments. Like today, crypto is not used for payments, what was which was the natural use case, of blockchain. So I think sometimes we will have to take a step back and think about the core use cases for this technology, and maybe let's not get lost into let let's not get lost into some sort of other details on how to improve the infrastructure, but which is very important. But I see a lot of also disincentives, for example, for builders which are building, let's say, a meme coin, or they are building a chain and they're vesting their tokens because of how hyper liquid this industry is. Sometimes it rewards people in the wrong way, and so like being rewarded in a wrong way, they might go for a path which is very short-sighted and it's just trying to leverage the spur of the moment and trying to make some money and then leave. So I think going back to the core use cases of blockchain is super important. Getting back to the real words, like for example the word web free. Like I see a lot of a lot of buzzwords like that, but then are we sticking to these words on the first place? For example, when I think about web3, I can see we have created an entire new experience of financial applications and layers, but I don't see today yet, for example, how Web3 and the web that we use every day come together. So I would like to see, in the near future, for example, something that can be used, like what we are trying to build, with the decentralized identity, goes beyond Web3. Hopefully, tomorrow, like in 10 years, there will be some sort of, sign in with the Ethereum or sign in with any other chain, or maybe it won't even name like that, will be named like that. But, you will be able to use the advantage of self custody and blockchain for your everyday life. So I think this is where we should build next, like thinking about real use cases in mind, and where blockchain is a good fit for that. And I think I named a few. um, for me it's identity, it's stable coins, it's like it can be gaming in a way. So going back to these core problems and trying to solve them, leaving maybe some of the hyper speculative and financial use case in favors of something that can go beyond the relatively small bubble and circle of people that we have onboarded today.
Cool. Thank you for that. You've dropped a lot of insights and a lot of gems as well. So hopefully, for all users listening, it's gonna be a good way to kind of think about what Web3 is, the situation it is in right now, and what we can look forward to the future. And that's something that we're gonna have our next and last question in, which is the future, right? I know both Transac and Everclear have transformed into these very powerful tools as well. Um, and are catering to a lot of projects, be it directly at users or customers. And I'm sure both Alessandro and Max, you guys are probably the hardest working Web3 builders in Milan as well. So looking forward to the future, right? Now we're in Q2. Um, could you perhaps share, some important project updates or some events that users can potentially look forward to for the rest of this year? Max, you want to go first?
Yeah, with pleasure. And a small note: the Italian builders community is actually thriving, and in Milan in particular. You'd be surprised how many projects have actually Italians in the background, some different roles. But there is a very nice community in Milan that is growing fast. And yeah, regarding Everclear, we have big plans for this year. First of all, we're going live. Like Connext has been around since 2018, but our new product, which we rebranded Everclear, will go live in about 5 weeks. So we are extremely excited about that. We are already on testnet and working with the early partners, and then we're going live in a month and a half, more or less. And so there will be a very exciting time for us and hopefully for the industry as well. What we expect to happen after is that we expect cross to cut the cost for cross-chain transactions a lot, and so we will see a lot of the bridges become really, really cheap, even cheaper than what they are today. And so once we prove that that is feasible, that is working, we're going to onboard more partners, first of all, and more chains. So our expectation is to be to around 50 chains by the end of the year, and then really expand aggressively and very fast to any new chains, any new layer twos and layer threes, basically, that pops up in the next quarters. So we're super excited about it, and yeah, we look forward to going live first and then start this growth phase.
Awesome. Minute launch, that's really big. All the best. And for all of our listeners tuning in, make sure to give both Everclear and Transac a follow so that you can keep up with everything that they're doing. So yeah. Yeah, Alessandro, up to you.
Yeah, actually, we have a lot going on. We are, first of all, I don't know how much I can disclose, to be fair. But stay tuned.
Come on,
There will
Ale, spill some alpha.
I mean, first of all, we are fundraising, so with that there will come a lot of growth, a lot of activities that we are doing. We are, as I said, expanding beyond payments, and going fully all in on onboarding. So yeah, I mean, I hope I can join in 2-3 months and give you more details. But yeah, in terms of events, for those that are gonna be in Italy, maybe end of summer, there is It Milan. If you want to drop by, Max is also gonna be there. You'll meet all of the Italian builders. So check it out, and I hope I can see you there, and maybe I will be able to share more alpha on what we're cooking.
Awesome. Thank you, Alessandro. I'm sure you're masterminding some big plans for Web3. So hopefully we'll be able to hear more about it yeah, within the next few months. Awesome, awesome, awesome. So yeah, thank you. We've come to the end of this AMA. Both Max and Alessandro, you guys have shared a lot of information as well, including what you guys are, what you guys have built on, how you guys started, all of your features, and what we can look forward to in the future. I also wanted to add just a little bit on Contos as well, especially for our, Q2 up to Q4, right? So, we've been integrating a lot of EVM chains, and we're also, focusing on adding support for non-EVM chains, and this is kind of like our commitment to inclusivity across various blockchain ecosystems, and hopefully by this we're able to attract more users and projects and so on. Another thing that we're focusing on is support for multiple brokers as well. Hopefully, by enabling transactions through multiple brokers, we can improve speed and accessibility within Contos, and hopefully provide users with a broader network that can boost liquidity, better pricing, and so on. And moving on, our next focus is on user experience and just optimizing it. We'll be using like client verification algorithms and so on to kind of streamline the overall platform performance, and particularly for users who may not run full blockchain nodes. So hopefully this is able to optimize that experience and just make it more efficient for everyone. And just on an event uh, update. So we are currently having our Orbs challenge, right? So within the Contos ecosystem, you can complete various tasks related to, transactions, trading, and so on, and you can earn points. And then once you reach a certain level of points, you're able to trade it in and earn lots of different rewards. It could be NFT, stable coins, and so on. So for all of you listening and interested in uh, earning some really cool rewards, and at the same time just understanding more about what Contos does, and just kind of like experiencing it, that make sure to take part. It's still going on, and it's going to be a really cool experience. So yeah, make sure to check it out. And over the past couple of hours as well, we've received a lot of questions, um, just asking lots of different things on chain abstraction, what we're up to, and so on. So I'll just go through five of them, and maybe Alessandra and Max can give kind of like a rapid answer to just see what see what it's all about. So I have a couple of questions here. So the first one is, um, what are like the main security concerns associated with cross-chain transactions, and how can they be mitigated? This is from a user called Mohammed Sadona. So yeah, would you mind sharing a little bit about maybe some security concerns that you think might exist with cross-chain transactions?
Yeah, thank you, Mohammed, for the question. Cross-chain is a very um, complex topic, let's say, to analyze, and especially when we talk about security. Um, the key part of the security aspect relies around the validation of the transactions when you do when you do a transaction across different chains. So the question that you need to ask when you see a cross-chain transaction is who is validating the transaction is valid. Because if the entity that is validating is one, right, you might have the two most secure blockchains. I said you have Ethereum and Solana, which are two relatively secure blockchains. But then, if in the middle you add a third party that is in charge of validating a cross-chain transaction, that party is the one that becomes responsible for the security of their whole process. And so if the third party is one unique party, right, you are basically creating a centralized entity that is that it can be hacked, manipulated, bribed, and then can potentially harm the cross-chain transaction itself. And so you always have to understand who is that entity that is validating the transactions. And so over the course of the years, we have seen different mechanisms popping up. The simplest one is, okay, let's create an oracle, right, which is effectively a centralized party that is monitoring the chains and validating the transactions. And so that's a high risk. You can have a multi-sig. You can have a very extended multi-sig, which is a set of validators. You can have an optimistic mechanism similar to how optimistic rollups work. You can try to have light clients, which are basically reading both blockchains and trying to minimize the trust, which is still a work in progress. Yeah, you have different formats. I think the key questions that you need to ask is who is in charge of validating a transaction. If that entity is decentralized, trustless, trust minimized enough, then the transaction can be secure. Um, and then I'm sure like the Kontos guys can explain even better how the mechanism work to minimize the trust.
Yeah, I was just about to say, it would be really cool, but we do have a few questions to go move on to, so maybe we can just keep moving on. Yeah, thank you for the answer, and hopefully, Mohammed, your question has been answered. So let's move on to the next one. So this is from Maxwell underscore SA 97497. So. Uh, the question is, how does the concept of chain abstraction aim to unify like the fragmented blockchain landscape by, kind of like minimizing the complexities of interacting with different blockchains, and the benefits that it offers to developers and users. Is there something that you'd like to add, Max or Alessandro, just on your ideas of chain abstraction?
I think we covered it pretty well in the space. The way that we solve it is that we let the complexity, we let the professionals deal with the complexities, and these professionals are the solvers or yeah, other entities that can execute all these transactions on behalf of users. And for users, instead, the experience should be as simple as possible.
Cool, thank you. And then we have one from Decody33. So this question goes like, how do you envision the evolution of cross-chain solutions over the next 5 years? And what trends do you anticipate? I think this is something I can go on this. So I think this is something that both Alexandra and Max have explained quite clearly as well within the conversation. And I think as these L2s get more diverse and become more complicated, especially in the back end, it's quite important that uh, the front end user experience still stays the same or even becomes better, more smoother and easier to use. So I think this is probably going to be the core um, the evolution, especially over the next 5 years. And I think for a project standpoint, it's going to be how you deal with the complexities that the like the technology brings as well. And especially with the technology developing at such a fast rate, it's going to be interesting to see how all parties kind of deal with it and how we're able to take this and make it a kind of like a better experience for users as well. So yeah, and then the next question is from Amnodabot too. So what are the negative and positive impacts of chain abstraction, cross chain, and solutions and beyond? Is there anything that you guys want to add? Maybe on like I know we talked a little bit about kind of like the positive impacts, but maybe touch on maybe a point on the negative impacts of chain abstraction.
Yeah, I think. I mean, in general, I think chain abstraction is a fundamental piece to scale. this technology to everyday users. Like we without lower complexity will not enter the mainstream realm. And I guess this is not anything new, in my opinion. Just with different technologies, this has already been solved in the financial industry. Um, what you see in your bank, your dollars are not necessarily running on the same rails. They might be commercial dollars. They might not even be um, like what I'm trying to say is all of this has already been solved. The same type of problems that the industry is facing today by the financial system. So in this respect, I think the simplification is playing a fundamental aspect, and what Max is doing with Everclear and other players is super important for a player like us, and for any player that is trying to onboard users, both from our liquidity management perspective, but also for the user themselves, as they can basically have a very simple experience, which will not be possible without it. So all in all, I'm pretty positive to see momentum around these things like cross-chain applications and chain abstraction. They are like perfect match to scale the industry to the next level.
Awesome. Thank you for that. And now let's move on to the last question, which is from Alvaro and Drax. And the question goes: how do you strike a balance between decentralization and centralization in cross-chain solutions and ensuring both security and efficiency? Is there anything that you'd like to add, guys, when it comes to kind of like finding the balance between centralization and decentralization?
It's a good question. I mean, as we know, it's a spectrum, right? There are different degrees, and uh, I think we like it's not easy, but we're getting to a state where the user experience on a decentralized and trustless, both cross-chain but in general on-chain app, is comparable to the ones on centralized exchanges, which is where we want to be. So I don't think there is a simple answer, a simple clear answer to the question, but um, I think it's when both the infrastructure and the applications themselves, we are all trying to improve them as an ecosystem in parallel, so that better infrastructure supports better applications who then require better infrastructure, and so on. And so we can get to the state where there is there's not necessarily a compromise between the two. Like we can get a fully decentralized, secure, trust minimized app that is also easy to use, easy to onboard, and easy to experience in general. Um, and then chain abstraction is one small piece of the puzzle. But as I said, I'm very optimistic, and I feel that we're getting there very fast at this point.
Awesome. Thank you, Max, for your outlook. And yeah, so now we reached the end. Thank you to all the users who asked their questions as well. And once again, thank you to Max and Alessandro for taking the time and for explaining a lot about not just chain abstraction, but everything that you guys do beyond cross chain solutions, and just building products that make the user experience a lot more smoother, a lot better, and really making that jump easier into crypto for a lot of people. So another reminder for everyone, please do give both Alessandro and Max a follow, as well as Everclear and Transak. They're doing amazing things in the space, and definitely projects to look out for. in the coming months and so on. And yeah, once again, thank you very much, guys, for your time. Definitely learned a lot, and hopefully we can do this again sometime.